We have a great show lined up for you here on Retiring Well. We're going to be talking about a guide to getting a pension, how that could be valuable for you. Interest rate risk, as we're seeing interest rates rise, what impact does that have on you? Safety, growth, and liquidity. You can pick two of those. What does that look like? And how to retire alone. This is something that maybe if you're on your own, you want to be tuning into. So stay tuned here to Retiring Well.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well, plan to retire well.
I'd like to share with you a basic guide as far as getting a pension. So a pension is ultimately a type of structure where you've been paying into this retirement plan where essentially then you're going to be receiving a lifetime income stream. So it would be a guaranteed income for you. Potentially, if you're married, there might be different survivorship benefits that you can choose from where potentially if you pass away, your spouse can then receive the same level of income or maybe some percentage, 75%, 50%, as a lifetime income stream. So one of the things, having been at Centennial Wealth Advisory now for 17 years, when I think back to the early 2000s and starting here and seeing it was most common that people had pension plans. They were essentially going into retirement based on the assumption, well, I've got this pension income, I've got some Social Security income, and my needs are pretty well met. And then there's, maybe a little bit saved for retirement for those extras. Well, that's drastically changed now. We somewhat rarely see folks coming into the office that have these pensions. So where can you still get them? Well, there's different government jobs where you can be set up in a pension, or maybe perhaps a union type of structure where you're going to have that guaranteed income stream. Those are probably the largest groups. We noticed here in the state of Michigan for teachers, a few years ago they changed that and focused more primarily on 401k plans. We also noticed that with Munson Healthcare as another company who changed that structure and put more of the emphasis into the employees' hands within the different retirement plans to contribute and then therefore generate some income. So the other thing that I found interesting when reading through this article from U.S. News is it talked about maybe marrying someone that has a pension plan. So I don't know if that's for those single folks out there, that might be a new pickup line. Hey, I've got a pension plan. Do you want to date? So, but the other idea that I wanted to put out there is how you can create your own pension plan. Essentially, what you're doing with a pension plan is generating some type of guaranteed lifetime income, which is ultimately what insurance companies do through different types of annuities. Now, that's a whole nother topic that you'd want to get into. With annuities, there's going to be different costs involved. There might be surrender penalties if you wanted to cash out. There's different options as far as either for a single lifetime or if you're married for a joint lifetime payout. And again, a variety of different options. So as you're evaluating your retirement plan, if you have specific questions about a pension or creating your own pension, feel free to give us a call.
Another great segment there on pensions and how you actually get one. You know, in today's day and age, we very rarely come across people that actually have a pension anymore. They've kind of done away with them. But oftentimes what comes up when we do run into those people that have a pension is, what are my pension election options? And you know, in the Gaylord office, I actually ran across a recent case where a couple came in and they were one of the lucky ones that had a pension, but they had 4 different options that they didn't really understand. The first option that they wanted to consider was what's called a single life pension payout, and that was worth the most money. But what they didn't really understand was, well, what happens if I take that and then I pass away, the pension recipient passes away? If they selected that pension option, the spouse would get nothing. And so that was a big factor for them in determining which plan makes the most sense for them.
Yeah, Nick, that's another thing that we get to analyze. Anybody that comes in with a pension, I say, okay, let's first figure out the facts of your pension plan. Let's look at what your options are. Sometimes you find that having a survivor benefit by electing that strategy, it also has a healthcare link to it, meaning that, hey, the pension recipient dies, pension payments don't die. They actually get to go over to that spouse. What also then a lot of times will carry over are the healthcare benefits. So it's something that you really want to understand. Okay, what are the rules? How is this pension plan working, and what are my options? Nick, we get to analyze all the time. Okay, well, what if there's a lump sum option to your pension? What in our world, do we have to offer as an option to then choose something other than just what the workplace, pension plan can provide?
Yeah, that's why it's just so important to make sure you understand all the variables in your pension. And it's not just that pension payment, right? You also want to look at your other income sources too, whether it's Social Security or drawing from the portfolio as well, so that you can make an informed and educated decision on which pension option you should take. So stay tuned. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about interest rate risk and safety, growth, and liquidity. Pick any two.
Every success story starts with a plan. The success of your retirement depends on a solid financial plan. If you are nearing retirement or already retired, we invite you to an informative live event to help you plan to retire well. There is no cost and no obligation, and dinner is on us. We are Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial professionals, specializing in retirement planning, serving all of northern Michigan, with offices in Traverse City, Cadillac, Petoskey, and Gaylord. Our presentation includes, is your retirement prepared for inflation? Do you know the true risk of your investments? What happens to your assets when you pass away? Do you have a tax plan? How does your income affect health insurance costs? And much more. Call 888-608-5825 to register and choose the date and location that works best for you. Wednesday, October 19th at Lakeside Charlie's in Cadillac, or Thursday, October 20th at BJ's in Gaylord. The live event starts at 6 p.m. and is free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow, but seating is limited and tends to fill quickly. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. Don't miss this important live event to help you plan to retire well. Call 888-608-5825 today.
I'd like to talk about interest rate risk. Now there's many types of risk out there as an investor. Oftentimes we're conditioned, I think, mainly to think about market risk. If we're investing in stocks, the S&P 500, that sort of stuff, we're conditioned to think, the ups and downs of the market and the risk that's associated with that. There's numerous other types of risk, and we're going to kind of focus on this interest rate risk. We haven't had to talk about interest rate risk for some time now because we've been in kind of a stable or even declining interest rate environment. But over this last year or so, we've been in this rising rate where the Federal Reserve is raising rates, and we're seeing interest rates tick up. For some people, that's a good thing. For others, not so much. So when we think of what is interest rate risk, well, basically, it's the risk of owning an investment subject to interest rate fluctuations. So typically, you're seeing these associated with bonds, is what most commonly interest rate risk seems to hit. So simply put, let's say I had a bond paying 3%. And overnight, rates become 4%. Well, who wants my 3% bond? It's not as attractive anymore, right? If I'm getting 3% and I could get 4% somewhere else, well, obviously, I'd rather have the 4%, right? So they have to discount this bond to kind of make it equal upon a sale. Also, you think of opportunity cost, that lost cost basically, or lost potential I have of not getting that higher rate. So that's a little bit of the risk built into that as well. So you may say, well, Art, what if I just hold my bond to maturity? Then I don't have that risk, right? That's true, you don't, because you're not trying to liquidate that. You're still getting your lower, in our example, 3%, but you're missing out on the potential for that higher risk, or higher rate, sorry. So the longer you hold the bond, or the longer the bond duration is, 1 year, 2 year, 10 year, 30 year, whatever it may be, that longer that duration, the more sensitive it is to that rate change, right? So if it's just a short-term duration, a short bond, it's not going to be as sensitive because I don't have that time. But those 20 or 30 years, if you're accepting that lower rate, that time is going to have a bigger multiple, right? So that may play into your decision of how that may affect. As the term gets longer, that kind of smooths out, like the example, the difference between a 1 year and a 10 year is much steeper. From a 20 to 30 year, it's not so drastic. So if you're concerned about how maybe interest rate risk may affect you, or how that fits into things, there's lots of things to consider, not just from an investment, from a timing, a need, inflation, all this sort of stuff. Give us a call. We'd love to walk through it with you and see how it helps you plan to retire well.
If you like watching Retiring Well, make sure to go to youtube.com/retiringwell and click the subscribe button to never miss any of our TV shows and other informative videos.
If you're retired or approaching retirement in the next 5 to 10 years, join us for an informative live event. This event is all about you, the challenges you face, and the information you need to help you build the future that you want. There's no pressure to become a client. Our goal is to simply give you valuable information that you can use to make smarter financial decisions. We hope that by the time you leave this event, you'll be one step closer to your retirement goals.
NMC Extended Education is offering an educational class titled Retirement Secrets, Plan to Retire Well, presented by Jack Clunder, financial advisor at Centennial Wealth Advisory and a former educator of personal finance and mathematics. If you are nearing retirement or already retired, then this class is for you. Many things can threaten your ability to outlive your assets and retire well. The big three are healthcare, inflation, and taxes. Learn to navigate the critical issues that a retiree must deal with. You'll learn how to plan for predictable and sustainable income, minimize taxes on your IRAs, maximize your Social Security benefits, and avoid estate planning mistakes. We'll also discuss long-term care concerns and what investments are appropriate in different situations. The cost is only $69. Materials will be provided, and a spouse or guest may attend for free. The class will be held on 2 Wednesdays, September 21st and 28th, from 6 to 9 p.m. at the NMC Great Lakes campus. Reserve your seats today by calling NMC at 231-995-1700. Again, that number is 231-995-1700. The class is called Retirement Secrets.
Hey, welcome to this segment on safety, growth, and liquidity. Pick any two. When I heard about this segment, I thought, hey, it's kind of like that saying you've heard before where it talks about there's no silver bullet. You know, generally speaking, in the investment world, there's 3 worlds of money. There's safety, there's growth, and there's liquidity. And basically the rules go, you get to pick any two. So there's going to be a graphic that comes up on your screen, and we're going to talk about the typical investment positions in each of those strategies, the 2, safety, growth, or liquidity, that we're going to choose. And then I would challenge you to maybe add up how much you approximately have in each of those strategies. It might give you a good indication if you really are accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish. You can see if the 2 that are most important to you are covered. So let's start with the first strategy. Let's say that you want to have safety, no principal loss. And then let's say that your goal is to also have liquidity. You want to be ready to access that money. What vehicles might that look like? Maybe you got cash in the safe, or you have money in the bank at a savings account or a checking account. Very, very easily accessible, and there's safety from the principal loss. So that would be our first strategy. You've achieved safety, you've achieved your liquidity. Now let's go to the next strategy. Sometimes clients will come in and they'll say, hey, I want safety, I want no principal loss, but I need some more growth than what these other vehicles are offering. Where might you go for that? Well, we are finding right now there's a lot of insurance products that are offering those where we can have safety, the protection from the principal loss, but then there's some growth opportunities there. So we're finding a lot in fixed indexed annuities where they link the growth to common indexes like the S&P 500, where if that index is up, you participate, and if that index is down and there's a loss, you do not have to experience or take part in the loss. And so there's other products out there, but that's a quick example. And so where you can have the growth, have the safety. Now, what do you give up? Well, you give up the liquidity. Okay, so a lot of times these contracts will have term links. Okay, 2, 5, 10 years. So you give up the liquidity, but you get the growth potential and the safety. And now you go down to that third strategy, and this is where we're looking for growth and we're looking for liquidity. We want to be able to access that right away. Okay, well, where do we go to find that? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, gold, commodities, real estate, ETFs, all these different investment vehicles are good fits for trying to achieve that growth and having them be accessible and liquid. Okay, but what do you give up on that third strategy? Yep, you're giving up safety. So there is loss potential in those. And so after you add up all three of the numbers of your portfolio and your strategy, if you find that you're out of whack at all in any of those, if you have questions about that, feel free to give us a call. We love to help teach. Hey, welcome back. I hope that you found that segment on interest rate risk very helpful. We see a lot of times in our office, Cadillac office, Traverse City, Gaylord, or Petoskey, where clients will come in and they won't really understand what risk they even have. We are in this rising interest rate environment, and so a lot of times clients will just come in and they'll hand us an old 401k statement, and they will say, all I know is I lost a bunch of money. And so we start identifying, hey, okay, let's pinpoint where your risk is. Let's understand why that risk is present, and then let's make a plan about a risk mitigation strategy. And so, we are constantly looking for, okay, we don't have to throw all the bonds out with the bathwater, but, what are our bond alternatives? So, Nick, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that's where those different investment tools come into play. And the other topic they talked about there was safety, growth, and liquidity, pick any two. So when we're going to minimize risk, well, there's not a perfect tool out there that's going to get you all minimizing risk, the safety, a bunch of growth, and all liquidity, right? So that's where we want to diversify assets and invest maybe a portion into a product that has both safety and growth, but might tie up your funds for a period of time. And then the other portion of the assets, you could have more growth heavy, more liquid, but also understand that there's a little bit more risk involved in that strategy as well.
Yeah, and I love what Nick was just explaining there, because you can then pinpoint where your risk is, why it's there, there's purpose behind it, and then you can also pinpoint where your risk is not. And you can pinpoint the why behind that. And so, when we meet with our clients, we're constantly trying to talk and discuss with them and be a sounding board. Hey, here's what the market is producing. Here are all of the products out there. But really what you should identify are what are maybe the two most important strategies that you might be trying to accomplish. And let's make sure that's in line. But it starts with learning. It starts with investigating, where you're at, what your risks are, what your risk mitigation strategy is. So if you ever have any questions and you want to learn some more about it, feel free, give us a call. And we'd love to be able to sit down, no pressure, no obligation, just learning. And hey, coming up next, we're going to be talking about how to retire alone.
If you are retired or soon to be retired, let us help you plan to retire well. Centennial Wealth Advisory specializes in retirement planning and has offices in Traverse City, Cadillac, Petoskey, and Gaylord. We'll never pressure anyone to become a client. Our goal is to inform and educate. Simply attend one of our live events or schedule a meeting at one of our Northern Michigan office locations for a free, no obligation retirement review.
Living life isn't always easy. It puts up challenges and obstacles you'll have to overcome. There are responsibilities. You put in effort to provide and take care of your family, and to save and invest, to balance work and life. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
Are you retired or approaching retirement in the next 5 to 10 years? Join the Centennial Wealth Advisory team for an exciting presentation with complimentary gourmet dinner and learn essential financial strategies for a comfortable retirement. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Call 888-608-5825.
If you like watching Retiring Well, make sure to go to youtube.com/retiringwell and click the subscribe button to never miss any of our TV shows and other informative videos.
There's many different variables to retirement planning. Potentially one of them that some people consider, or maybe top of mind for many, is how do you retire by yourself? What if you're single, widowed, divorced, one of those situations? What does retirement planning look like that? And so I spent a little time and did a little bit of research and went out there and found, and according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 65% of men and 58% of women ages 55 to 66 are married. So that means the difference, right, is not. So there's a vast majority, actually that's not true, not vast, but a large chunk of the population out there is in that situation. You're going to be retired by yourself. And so retirement planning is unique for every circumstance, but specifically if you fall into this situation, you're going to want to look at some specific things to make sure you're planned appropriately. One of them, like everybody, a budget. What is your particular budget and how is that going to change heading into retirement? While you're working, is there any sort of things your work expenses are picking up? Or maybe there's going to be some expenses that fall off. But looking specifically at that budget, and then also those things that you want to do in retirement. What are some additional expenses you're going to pick up? Cash flow. For retiring alone, you're just going to have one Social Security and maybe one pension or however you've positioned yourself. But how does that play? Extra look at how to take Social Security. Many different ways to take it from a timing perspective, sometimes from an individual perspective. Maybe there's a bigger sense of delay that you try to grow that benefit potentially in your circumstance. So having a really strong look at cash flow and how that's not only going to impact you today, but long term. Taxation. We talk a lot about that from planning and all that perspective. But that single taxpayer bracket, can be brutal in some circumstances. And looking at that very specifically and seeing how that impacts you, once again, not today, but also looking down the road when Social Security kicks in. What about required minimum distributions and how that may impact you over the term of your retirement and your needs and stuff like that? Health insurance. Obviously, depending upon the age you retire, are you of Medicare age yet or pre-Medicare? How does that impact on the marketplace with income limits and subsidies and all those various aspects? You know, figuring out how to maybe position things to take best advantage to that. And then long-term care, you know, not having a partner there to be able to maybe assist with some of those daily tasks if you become ill or needed. What does that look like? Do you have appropriate protections in place? Financially, are you able to handle things? So when you think about retirement, it's a joyous time typically, and there's a lot of exciting things. But having a plan in place for every particular circumstance, and for those of you that may be retiring alone and by yourself for whatever reason, you know, we'd love to talk to you and let us help you plan to retire well.
Hey, hopefully you found that segment valuable where you could get some ideas of, you know, what it might look like to retire alone. You know, recently in the Cadillac office, I was meeting with a longtime client here, and, you know, when we first met, they had been working their whole entire life, single, you know, no kids, and so, and made great financial decisions. So as we were structuring her portfolio and getting everything, you know, in line, we actually realize, like, hey, there's some money here that you're not going to be spending. And so because of that, I actually had to transition a little bit into being her spend coach. And so recently she just took an awesome trip to Alaska, had a group of friends that they traveled with, had just an epic trip, and we were able to eliminate a lot of that worry. And she's really loving, you know, this new season of retirement, travel, friendships, and so it's been fun to be a part of that. I know, Nick, you have
I know it's kind of like trying to find your purpose, right, in retirement. What is that goal? And even if you're retiring alone, you still have something you want to accomplish, right? You know, a great example is my grandmother. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away early in retirement. And so my grandmother was retiring pretty much alone for the majority of the time that she had left. And so what she found is, well, she wanted to be around family as much as possible. And that meant attending a whole bunch of her grandkids' sporting events. She even came to my hockey games in the freezing cold ice rink, a little grumbling there from time to time. But her purpose was just to spend as much time with her family as possible. She also loved to travel too. My grandparents would go down to Madeira Beach, Florida every year, and she didn't want to stop doing that when he passed away. So she would, like Jack was saying, travel with friends and also family as well to continue that tradition going forward. But yeah, I think it's just whether you're single or you're a couple, you enjoy retirement.
Yeah, and I love what Nick was saying there too, just about some of the purpose and goals of retirement. You know, I have clients that love to volunteer. They get the most fulfillment, you know, learning something new and giving it away, or volunteering their time that is precious to help somebody else. So thank you so much for joining us this week. We hope you enjoyed. We hope you found something that's helpful. You can find us every single week, same time, same channel.